are on board the Royal Caribbean Cruise Line, and we are filming a jazz archive presentation for Hamilton College. My name is Dr. Michael Woods, and my guest today is Jimmy Cobb and Walter Booker, two of the finest rhythm section players in the world. We're going to talk to them about their experiences in jazz. Just share with me, who were you listening to when you were a kid, when you decided you wanted to play the drums?
Me? Well, just about everybody you can think of, because at the time I started to play, there was a whole lot of big bands going on, you know, and in my town, every week you had a different big band come to town, so you could see almost anybody you wanted to see over a period of time. So, and then not only that, I was in the era of Billy Eckstine's big band, who the personnel of that band got to be the top echelons of the jazz world, you know. So I came along at a good time where I could see all these great people, you know. Bill Eckstine had, you know who Bill Eckstine had, everybody in the band, Charlie Parker, Miles Davis, everybody that you think about had a big name now, went through that band. Sarah Vaughan, you know, Leo Parker was a baritone player. I don't know if a lot of people know about him, but he was a great baritone player at that time. There wasn't many of those then. Then let's see, I'm trying to think who was in that trumpet section. Dizzy Gillespie, Fats Navarro, another trumpet player named Shorts O'Connell. I think Sarah made me remember who he was. And J.J. Johnson was in that band.
Wow.
Over a period of time, Charlie Rouse, Dexter Gordon, Gene Ammons, you know.
That's
so
a
everybody
lineup.
you can think about came through that band. So I was fortunate enough to be able to be old enough to go see some of those guys, you know. I remember peeping through one of the smoke fans in one of these clubs, watching Roy Haynes. He don't want me to say that, but but that's what it was, you know, because it was like in the late 40s or something. I was like getting to be a teenager or something. And this particular club in town was called a Club Ballet. And right where you could walk around the side and step on the steps and look into the smoke fan, you could look directly at the stage. And I saw Roy there with Lester Young, you know, and like that. So at that time, around all the cities in the United States, there was like ghettos, and each ghetto had its own little kind of a music thing, you know. Like I mean, each city had like a variety theater, you know, where they showed movies and had shows. You know, that's why I say there was a band coming like every week that you could see. Then they had like music halls where like on Sunday you could go and see a band and dance. You know, like in fact in Washington there was a place called the Lincoln Theater, and right under that was a place called the Colonnade, where, you know, on certain days they would have a dance, and you could go down and see almost any band you wanted to. You know, so I had a real fruitful musical start.
And you had exciting people to stir it to life for you.
Oh, I could see almost anybody I wanted to, you know, because they came right to my town.
And you?
Well, you know, I really can't add very much, except I was into listening to a lot of bass players, even though I wanted to play other instruments before I started playing the bass. I can't add very much to it because I'm just a little bit behind him in years, and we're from Washington. So I was exposed to the same things almost at the same time, you know, except that was Mr. Murray's Dance Casino, which was down the street from where he's talking about, also added to that. I think I remember him telling me he used to go there, and Mr. Murray would let him go there and jam. Is that right? He used to go there?
Yeah, we used to play. I think I remember working someplace, working for $5 a night, and the guy owing me $85 after a while.
That's a few gigs, isn't it?
That's a long time.
Was that 17 gigs? Yeah.
But, you know, I was having fun, and I was learning. Then it was at a time where the real professional musicians had gone to the Army, you know, so like it was right in that space where I had a chance to play with that everybody that was left. I had the chance to play with them. You know, I'm a young guy playing with older guys, so that I got that kind of experience from them. You know.
Tell us one of the gigs that you were on when you in your own mind said, I've arrived. I'm a player, I'm on the scene, and I have a voice here.
Well, I think that must have been when Keita Betts got me a job with Earl Bostic's band, and I left town. I didn't say I arrived, I said I'm leaving.
Which is,
So I left it. I was
depends on
working.
what standpoint you're from. It's the
That's
same
right.
thing.
I'm arriving, but I'm leaving. So that was a pretty good thing because I didn't really know how I was going to ever get out of the town. I got to be 21 years old and I got to leave, so it was great. I went to New York, and that's from New York I stayed to New York, and which was my passage out of Washington. Not that I didn't love Washington, I still love it, but it's not like you're going to make a living around there playing music. Or maybe some people do, but I didn't think I could, so I figured New York was the place for me, and it turned out, it worked out.
And now the bass and the drums are the backbone of the rhythm section. I'd like for you to talk to us about your concept of the time element, because when you think of jazz music as compared to any other form of music, you think of the rhythmic vitality of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's always jumping, it's always syncopated, it's always full of surprises and energy and pulse. Walter, talk to us about what you do with the time when you play. I watched you do a set in there, and you had that bass jumping.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. There is a meter, a pulse that when you're playing within, and at the same time you're playing harmony, or you're playing notes that go with
the rhythms.
Yeah, with the rhythm. See, that's the funny thing. People think of rhythm and melody and harmony as they are elements to make up. That's what makes up music, but really, they sort of are interdependent because one really creates another. So, I suppose you learn how to express yourself in terms of how you can stay within what you're doing and create flow and create tension anytime you want to, because that's what makes things jump. The fact that it's not predictable, the fact that it does a little bit more than flowing, or a little bit less than flowing sometimes. And so you express yourself with being able to do that. At what such times that you're feeling like it. You know what I mean? Hoping that it'll go fit with what everybody else is doing. I mean, you do it based on thinking
Everybody else.
Yeah, everybody else. Yeah, absolutely. What do you think, Jimmy?
Tell us about your concept of time.
Well,
Color.
My concept is just to try to keep it lively and keep the time together, and try to keep everybody inspired if possible, or if try to help them through their improvisation, just try to be there for them. That's all. At all times. In fact, in this band, they depend on it a lot. And every band, I guess, but this band has a lot of energy, and Nat's band has a lot of energy, so
It sure does.
and he expects it every night.
Yeah, he expects it.
Every song,
expects
so that's what
Almost like he needs it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's fell into that habit, which is I think it's a good habit.
A couple of things I want to ask you about the drum kit. Can you share with us, explain to us a little bit how the styles of playing the drums changed in sound and in what the drummer does, or his role, or the sounds that he creates, from Dixie to swing to bop to hard bop to what you play today?
I don't know. Basically, the drums. If you're talking about the drums per se, I don't know how they change because they have new innovations. They make different things a little different. Like long time when they was playing Dixieland, they didn't really have a lot of cymbals going. You know, the guys played rolls on snare drums like you know, like just like that, and then didn't have a lot of cymbals. They played on cowbells and snare drums and stuff like that. A little later, it evolved into something where old man Jonathan Joe Jones, started to play the hi-hat. You know, like made a stand and put two cymbals on it, and like, you know, like what you got now, the hi-hat. He started that, you know. Then you started to play with cymbals, the hi-hat and then cymbals on top, you know, like that. So that evolved from the snare drum to, you know, playing the whole, say more or less the whole kit instead of just the snare drum and around the tom-toms like that. And I don't know, just lately I think the drums have they've been probably making drums better, and they've been probably making more of them, because I had a set home with like 7 drums around it, which is not a lot, but that's for a certain type of music, because jazz players don't usually use that much drums. They don't really need that much. You know, the jazz players usually use like maybe at most 2 tom-toms on top of the bass drum and 1 on the floor, and snare drum and the bass drum. You know, like, well, rock drummers might have all around, like, you know, might have 12
with drums and cymbals.
Yeah, and 12 cymbals or something, you know, because I don't know what the reason is for that, but you know, they like it and that's what they think they have to have. So, but you know, the whole thing evolved. You know, I guess if you play this music, the whole thing is going to change. Basically, the drums do the same thing. You know, they keep the time, and they try to spark the players. So it's just not a whole lot of change, I don't think, in between Dixieland. It's just styles. You know, because the drummer has to do the same thing. He has to spark the band, and he has to play. He has to keep the time and stuff like that. Otherwise, it's the same deal. It's just a different ideologies, I guess.
I want to ask you a question about form, because sometimes I listen to players and it's a different role, and sometimes the bass player is the one that does it. Sometimes it's like your job to walk, but you're also your job to delineate the form, to see where it turns around. And then sometimes I hear players where they intentionally disguise where it turns around, where you can't find the seams anymore.
Stay in the structure.
Stay in the structure.
Yeah, like 32-bar form or something.
Yeah, well, no, the bass player. Yeah, the bass player is supposed to be able to stand up and not have anybody else play with him, and you're supposed to know where everything is.
Yeah.
If you know, if it's a tune like Have You Met Mr. Jones, you're supposed to see Mr. Jones all through that. And nowhere Mr. Jones went.
After you met her, you're supposed to watch Mr. Jones whether you met her or not.
So it's about.
That's a good way to put that. That's profound. I want you to know.
Yeah, that's the best way to explain that, I think, because you're supposed to know, the bass player's supposed to know where everything is. You know, they think the drummers are not or don't have to, but you know, there's a lot of musical drummers out here now. You know, like they would say like the drummer don't read music, or he don't have to read music. Or, you know, whatever.
But you know, I want you to know that he says the bass player's supposed to know it, and that's true. Maybe they are, but I'm one bass player that doesn't have to worry about it so much because I know he knows. So it makes a partnership in a way, sort of. I mean, it's not that I depend upon him, it's just that it allows me to even be
freer?
Well, a certain kind of freer, because now I don't have to really, you see, every it's relative, because every little bit that you may move in form or in any kind of way, and I know that he's got that kind of flexibility and that kind of hearing. And if he does it a little bit, you see what I mean? We can just do it really in a sort of magical way without anybody really realizing that it's being done to them. Because it's being done to them, you know? you know what I mean?
Yeah. You know, there's, in listening to the groups that I admire, there seems to be an unspoken communication in jazz night after night on the bandstand. Seems to be, and I want you all to elaborate on this, times when the energy level is a little bit higher that night than it used to be, or one person takes off, one person says, well, you know, somebody's looking for somebody to get it started. We said, we all know we can play, we all know that we're more than proficient players, but who feels like stepping out tonight? And then somebody says, okay, I'm gonna be the spark plug tonight. You know, or somebody takes a real nice solo and then everybody comes up behind them.
Oh, that'd be me.
So I just wanted you to talk about the camaraderie that takes place on stage.
If you have that attitude about it, you see what I mean? And if everybody felt that way, you know, let's say he was serious. Well, that'd be me because that would be me too. I feel like I need to be the one to do that. If everybody feels that way, then you'll never know, and we'll never know either which one created that that variable that you're speaking of. You never know which one.
Well, I guess on given nights we can all pick each other up.
Yeah.
One, you know,
in other words,
one way or the other. Yeah.
Tell us one of the most fun times, or one of the craziest or funniest little things that's happened to you on stage while you were playing.
Well, I could tell you, but it would be. We don't want to get into that, I don't think.
Oh, yeah, but it's a jazz archive. It's fun. Come on.
No, we don't want to get into that.
No, we don't.
You know, it's funny things that happen, but I don't know. I know technical things happen. You know, like I remember playing one time with Charlie Parker, Miles Davis. I was just talking to Milt Jackson about it because he was on the gig. Milt Jackson, Toots Tillman, Beryl Booker, Keita Bessie, and myself, and we was playing this theater. You know, like in you know, you got the curtain that opens, and I'm sitting up there getting ready to play. The curtain opens and take the bass drum off the stand hanging on the curtain. You know, and we're trying to play a fast tune, and I'm sitting there with no bass drum. And the rest of the drums and the bass drum is hanging on the curtain.
Yeah, see, that's one.
I remember seeing something like in the Howard Theater. They had like a stage where, you know, the drummer sat way up on top. You know, like the trumpets were here, trombones were there, the saxophones. You know, like almost a regular setup. And the bass player stands over here, and the piano player's down there. You know, like that. So they had, I think it's Sonny Greer's drums strapped to the wall, and when the curtain opened, they would push the stage out. So somebody forgot that his stuff was strapped to the wall, and when they pushed the stage out, his drums just stayed on the wall. So, you know, I mean, a lot of technical things happen that you have no control over.
I got one for the archives.
Okay.
Once I was working with, Betty Carter. We were on the road in Chicago. Betty, this was a while ago. You know, John Hicks was a piano player for 10 years, and this was about maybe the 5th or 6th year, and I had to work with her before, but I came back to work with her a while. And you know, Betty Carter has this used to have this habit of encouraging her drummers or bass players, you know, to be on the while she was singing, you know. So I mean, but she had never said anything to me. I don't know, it's because whether I was big enough. I used to think it's because I was good enough. You know what I mean? So and that's why she didn't bother me, you know. But we were just playing, and we had, you know, we had our schedule as to what we were gonna play next, you know. And she was just you know, singing. And she turned around.
She likes to mess with the drummer, yeah.
Yeah, that's what she messed with. You know. So she came and stood in front of me, but didn't turn and look at me. She stood and she turned around and said, "Do something," you know. And I was just playing, you know, and I said, "Huh?" And she said, "Do something." And so John Hicks was over here playing the piano. He said, and I stopped playing and said, I'm not gonna say what I said, but I said, "What's wrong with
what I'm doing?"
What's wrong too? You mean I'm not doing something? But it turned out to be that one of the songs she sings is "You Do Something to Me," right? And she wanted to change what song we were playing because it was marked "Do Something," quote, "Do Something," quote. She wanted to change it to be the one we do next, you know what I mean? And she was trying to let me know without so we could continue and flow.
It's supposed to be a segue.
Huh?
It's supposed to be a
segue.
segue.
Yeah.
Introduce something, yeah.
So you do something to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, I mean, John Hicks has teased me many a night since then for many years. Do something, Bookie.
Have either one of you had occasion to perform with Joe Williams?
Yes. Have you, Jim?
Yeah, we had occasionally we used to have a little thing where we'd go on a golf tour together. Joe, Joe is a great lover of golf, and so am I. So we used to have a tour. I mean, Keita Betts got into a thing where he would be like the musical director for this professional golfer that lived in Washington that was the pro at the golf course out there. So he got us all on the gig. And we used to go they did it for maybe 17, 18 times, and we used to go play the music and play golf because Keita's a golfer. Joe's a golfer. So we had to have occasion to play with Joe, and everybody else because we were, supplying the rhythm section for everybody that needed it. So we used to do that. And right now I can't. I'm getting old and I can't think of it. It was Lee Elder.
Lee Elder.
He used to have a pro-am tournament like every year, and we used to go play music for it. And Joe used to show up quite often on it. So I played with Joe. No, I haven't played with him other than that. I remember Joe from a long time ago, man. I remember Joe when he was still in Chicago, singing at a club named DeLisa. He was like the house singer in the club DeLisa in the 40s. So that's what I know him from. So.
How do you feel like his sound typifies jazz vocals?
Oh, well, he did a lot to bring a certain type of blues to certain people. Because when he was with Count Basie's band, he matter-of-factly kind of saved Count Basie's band for a minute because at that time the bands weren't doing that well. So they got Joe, and Joe was a real favorite singer, so he kind of helped the band. He helped us so much that I think Basie started calling him his son. So Joe kind of educated people to that music, people that probably wasn't listening to it before. Because he's got a lot of clever things that he says in the blues, and he can really do the real funky blues too, and he can do the sophisticated blues too. So I think lately they probably associate him with the latter, but he can do it all.
Absolutely, that's probably what happened. Yeah, he did raise up the. Yeah. He did widen the listening audience's ear to the blues form and the acceptance of it. You know what I mean?
And he kept Count Basie's band working too.
Yeah.
So because people they can sit and listen to instrumentals for a while, but they could just say every now and then say. When is somebody gonna sing?
When is the singer coming on?
Show you another little thing. We had a band. I was with one of Cannonball Adderley's first bands, him and Nat, and Junior Mance and Sam Jones and myself. So they used to play a little place in that little town where Cannon was teaching school called Porgy's or something. I think his name Porky's or something like that. The guy had a club, and they would go in and play. But Nat used to sing. And it was Nat's band, and Cannon was just in Nat's band because Nat is a singer.
Yeah.
So
see, they hired the singer.
Yeah, they hired singers because that's what they liked in this club. So they left town and got this band, and we was out playing bebop and stuff. And we came back, and the guy gave him a gig, because he knew. Bring this little guy. So we got in there. We played the first set. We playing that little bebop stuff. The guy came up on the stand and says. When is the little guy gonna sing? So Count said, we don't do that no more. The guy said, pack up your stuff.
Ooh, buddy, that's cold.
Yes, right. He said, well, get on out of here with that stuff.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And that shows that it really takes an educated ear to
Yeah, well,
hear
you know, that's-
to hear the sophistication of what somebody's doing. When
Now they wasn't ready for what we were doing. You know, they was ready for what Nat was doing before. You know, like he was singing "Whoa, Babe" and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, that's what they liked.
And yeah, that's what they.
He can do that now, but he don't do it. You know, he just, every now and then he gets it. Like the other night, the last part of the night, he got into a little "Whoa, Babe," but it's a little. And what he does is very funny. You know, it's entertaining.
You know, I want to ask you also about how times have changed. Do you think the music is more accepted now and people really appreciate the intellectual aspects of it, is the craft of it now? Or do you still think that it's still tied closer to the entertainment value?
Well, I don't know about now, but I know about before. I know before.
Yeah.
People, you know, people loved the jazz music because like musicians were treated like doctors and lawyers and stuff. You know, I'm talking about way back. I remember seeing Duke Ellington's band and Count Basie band. These guys in suits and you know. I looked up to them because I said, these guys, you know, I'm gonna be like that myself.
Yeah, it was glamorous. It was glamorous.
Yeah, it was, you know.
Yeah.
And but I think the music has done some different kind of turns and stuff, you know, till a lot of people is trying to wonder what it is, you know. Like it went so far one time, people said, no, oh, wait a minute, what is this? You know? So I don't know. I heard somebody say, well, maybe the best music has already been played. You know, and if you think about it, you know, you just the young guys that come up now, they have to go back and get all of that music before they can, before they reach maturity. So that means, and then I can't see that there's going to be anybody greater than all those people I mentioned before, like Charlie Parker.
Yeah.
I can't see an alto player being any better than that.
Yeah.
You know, maybe sound might be, but technically.
I think it's been a misnomer, well, in the last 20 years or less maybe, for jazz players to come up and think that there is going to be a change in the music without dealing with what was.
For the history.
Yeah, history, see? So now, I think recently we can see a lot of young guys coming up, and these young guys are thinking about the music,
beginning,
like the best music has already been played, because they are realizing, and they are approaching it like that is the school of thought. That is the basis, the background by which the base by which this music should be built. Now it is going into its own time. You know, we're letting time be the thing that determines how it is being expressed, and not trying to play something different than what it was. You know what I mean? Because time will do it, because it sounds the instruments will help time do it for it. You know, the way they're making instruments, the way they make the drum.
Well, not only that, they're making electric drums. You know,
yeah.
That's a sound that you didn't hear before.
Yeah.
And that has to take you someplace else.
Yeah.
And then they're making, they got this synthesizers. I can't even say that word. You got all of this stuff that really changes the music up. You know, it's like
insensitive sizes.
Yeah.
For one of a better word.
You better watch it. Somebody see this, you won't get it. You won't get a free app or something. You better cool. Yeah, you better cut this off right here.
Could you delete that section? You know, just edit that part.
I want to ask you for a moment. I just have to include this. Tell us about, a little bit anyhow, about John Coltrane. One of the most revered musicians who's ever lived. One of the most imitated saxophone players by everybody who's ever tried to play a tenor.
And well, you know, it's the same thing as that happened with, it's a person like that comes like maybe every so often, you know, that really changes the whole thing around. Like a long time ago, I remember, you know, from where I'm starting like maybe from Coleman Hawkins. But I'm sure it was people that influenced him, the way he played, you know. Then after Coleman Hawkins, it went into like Lester Young, which was a different style, you know, like everybody thought that Lester Young was supposed to play like Coleman Hawkins. In fact, somebody told me that his landlord told him, said, I don't know what kind of music you're playing. You're supposed to play, listen to this. This is the way you're supposed to play the saxophone, you know, and let him listen to Coleman Hawkins. You know? He said, well, no, I got my own thing, you know. So the things changed like that. So it was like Coleman Hawkins to Prez, Charlie Parker. See, the whole thing is changing, you know. To then I'm trying to think of anybody else that really major in this. There's probably some more major people that I can't think of in this, but Train comes from all of these people, you know. So he listened to all these people. In fact, I remember Train being in Earl Bostic's band. You know, which was Earl Bostic had a band. When I was in it, he was like trying to make a living, so he was playing like, you know, just kind of standard, kind of sort of a, I don't know what they call it, rock and roll, rhythm and blues, I think they call it then. Yeah. So he was just playing like that, but he was a super saxophone player, you know, and he used to play things there and play things on his horn that wasn't on the horn. You know, I mean, they were not supposed to come out of the horn. Like Wes Montgomery played stuff on the guitar not supposed to come out of the guitar, you know, like those octaves and things you play. Yeah. Guitar player said, you can't do that. Well, nobody told him that. You know, so Train learned a lot of things from Earl Bostic about how to get some other sounds out of his horn. You ever heard him play like 3 notes?
Train? Yeah, like multiphonics,
yeah. So he learned that kind of stuff, I think, basically from working with Earl Bostic for a while. Earl Bostic taught him some different fingerings and stuff like that. So, but he was a very conscientious guy, man. Like we was in a band together. He used to work. He would work work the sets, play half-hour solo or something, and then get off the stand and go in the corner and stand up and practice. And then come back on and do the same thing again, do that all night long. In fact, one time in Chicago, the whole week we were working in a place called the Sutherland Lounge, which was under this Hotel Sutherland. And he was having his teeth fixed this whole week. He'd go to the dentist in the daytime and play at night, which I couldn't understand, because that's really crazy, you know. So he did that the whole week, and by the time when he got through, he had his teeth fixed, you know. So he came on the stand and he looked at Paul Chambers and smiled, and the teeth was about that long. So Paul almost fell on the floor laughing because they used to be roommates, you know. And so he had to go get him filed down because he couldn't really bite. He didn't really have the right bite on the horn. But he was a very conscientious guy, man. He used to practice all the time. I mean, all the time. We go to London, he'd be sitting behind me practicing the soprano, you know. Ornette Coleman. You know, tunes. That really, you know, when you first started listening to that, and you first started listening to it on a soprano, it really sounds funny. Yeah. You know,
relative to the, you know, same way the clarinet sounded.
From what you used to hear. So, you know, he was like, he would practice all the time, man. Yeah. And, you know, he came up with a formula, you know. He came up with something that was different from everybody. And he could do it better. Well, you know, it was his thing.
Turned out to be
so now everybody has, I feel sorry for the saxophone player that has to come behind that one.
Right.
You know, because they say, whoa, wait a minute, you tell me I got to learn all of this?
Yeah, learn that, and the rest of this in hopes to let something come out of him. Yeah. You know? And that's probably why they want to go other directions, you know.
See, I got to go through this to get to me?
Yeah. So they said, no, I don't think so. And they go and try to skip over that. See, for years they did that. They tried to skip over that. So okay, we'll have his sound, and then we'll go on and do it. But they don't. His sound wasn't all that it was. You know.
Yeah, he had a whole lot of experience. He did a whole lot of things. Yeah. You know, he played in all kind of bands. He played in funk bands. He played bebop. He played in big bands. He played in Jimmy Heath's band. And when Jimmy Heath had a band in Philadelphia, and he played alto, you know, until he heard Charlie Parker, and he stopped doing that.
I think he played alto.
Yeah, he started on alto.
Yeah.
Some people say that he played the tenor so high because he really still heard the sounds
He probably
of the
did.
alto. So he like played everything a fourth or fifth higher.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, his ear probably. He probably felt more comfortable at first. Not because he knew, not because of his knowledge, you know, just because his ears and what made him feel comfortable, you know.
Give us a quick chronology of who you think some of the bass lineage is. We talked about Hawkins and Prez and Bird and Train. Give us some of that bass chronology there.
Well, you
have to start out with Jimmy Blanton.
Jimmy Blanton, absolutely.
Because he's the one that kind of modernized the bass playing. Because before that, they was playing doom, 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 doom. Like two beat notes, you know.
2 beat notes.
He kind of started to play the chord. And walk changes.
And play melodic lines, but harmony within what the changes are. Plus he played great solos, huh?
Yeah, he played great solos.
Plus he could play with the bow, and Duke Ellington loved with it. I loved him. He could play melodies. I don't know if you know about this duo thing with him.
He was a well-trained bass player. Like maybe he trained for. I don't know whether he trained for the symphony or not, but he was probably taught that way. Or somebody taught him that. Or either the gift came from where it comes from.
You know,
and nobody have to teach you nothing. Then it's just it's there.
Yeah, and what about Slim? Slim and his partner.
Slam Stewart.
See, people don't give. They may not give it credit because it was such a commercial kind of thing that he sang and played. But
he was killer, man. He's a very unbelievable bass player.
Yeah. And so then there's so many great guys. You know.
And there was Oscar Pettiford that came right off on the top of that.
Which is I sort of started from there I don't know that I consciously liked him most. Because I consciously liked all kinds of other people, but I came out sounding like that. When I heard myself play, I said, I don't want to sound, I didn't mean I don't want to. Is that me? I said, you know what I mean? Well, anyway, I think that's where I really came from.
Then it was Paul Chambers.
You know,
young Paul Chambers. He came like he sounded like he was the extension of both of them guys.
Jimmy Blanton, he means like
Jimmy Blanton and Oscar Pettiford. He sounded like he was the extension, the modern extension of those guys. And then those guys is just Ron Carter, but now there's a host of young guys that's in that idiom, it's killers.
They're really bad. And they thump too. Like, see, that was a time when they put the bass strings real close and they used to, for about 30 years, maybe 20 years. Now it's come back. These young guys today, man, they got the bass strings up high again from the bridge. From the fingerboard, and they thump now with beat, man. Matter of fact, they're not even using. They're beginning not to even use amps anymore.
Yeah, they want to get back out.
Mics in the basses now. So it's a boom, 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 boom.
Got that little torque on it when they hit it.
Which is an unspoken the reason why. You know what I mean? Rather than reason why, that's that's what it is. That's what was missing. Maybe they are saying, rather than reason why. Yeah.
Yeah, because I got a little band that I played with sometime, and the bass player he never uses an amp. He plays like the guys used to play a long time ago, but before, they might get close to the microphone or something, but they didn't
using
have
catgut strings again.
Yeah.
That makes the bass have resonance. See, it makes the bass have boom instead of with metal strings, which we had started using because of the amps. See, and because of putting things close to the string, it was the notes were sharper. Sharp in terms of more definite, more definition. But now the definition is not needed because the bass will give the definition. So it's interesting how.
Yeah, these little guys are on top of it too, man. Like I heard,
revolution.
It's a lot of great European bass players too, man. Like this guy Niels Hennings, Austin. Man, it's hard to believe this guy.
Man, he's incredible. Incredible. And
it's right off of that same thing. He told me himself. He said like The reason I want to learn to play the bass, I did a thing with Miles Davis in Sweden in what, 59 or something like that, and he said his father brought him to the concert. He was about 11 years old or something, and he said he heard Paul and he wanted to play the bass. I think he may have been playing it, you know, like legitimate or something, but he said Paul really wanted him to play, made him want to play like the way he plays now.
Yeah.
So he's a killer.
Yes, he is. Yeah. And it's interesting because, I mean, he's from a place that at that time you would get a chance to hear that much and be exposed, you know. But this guy sounds like he was exposed to everybody under the sun.
Yeah, he got it.
You know, that's funny sometimes when albums are hard to come by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when you want that sound, you want that feel, and you really want it, sometimes you don't got but 2 albums, but you memorize every note on the 2 albums.
Yeah, and then your natural, you learn.
Well, you can learn from them what kind of feeling you want.
What kind of feeling you want, yeah.
And the way you want to play.
Yeah, I mean, what kind of feeling you want can come out from it. At least you may not know that that's what you want until later on, but that's what you got, you know.
You know, you talked about the cultural context of this music, that you can't just play the music just to be playing the notes. We talked about Parker, talked about Train, and you know, I feel that at that particular time there were elements in society that were bringing forth these incredibly gifted people. Is there anything that can be done to society right now, or is there any elements that you know of existing, particularly in the African American community, that can spark that type of genius again in the 90s?
Well, let me see. Before, there was, like I say, it was all that music around us, you know, and then it got to be that it wasn't there anymore.
Yeah.
And it got to be that the music went to college, and most black people couldn't get to college. So at one time, like maybe 10 years ago, there was no brothers playing this music. You know, so I think what's the name? You just mentioned your boss lady.
Oh, Betty Carter.
Betty Carter was going around trying to promote the brothers to play because they was into rock and roll. You know, they got into rock and roll because I guess that's what was happening where they were. You know, so she went around wherever she worked and tried to promote the young brothers getting back into the jazz thing. So then it came back around again with Marcellus and them are throwing a whole lot of young guys in there.
Yeah.
From, you know, Louisiana is throwing a pile of people on this music.
Yeah. Brilliant.
So that started there. He helped a lot to bring young brothers back into this music. You know?
Because it is an accessibility, exposure that creates the chant. I mean, it creates the flow of it happening. You know, in other words, you know, the more it's exposed, the more people will like it. The more people that will want to play it. You know what I mean? It's a cycle. You know, the cycle of
the
stimulation.
more people you get to hear it, you get a better percentage out of people that might like it.
Yeah.
You know, because that's what he said.
And a better percentage of who might get involved with playing it and stay. You know what I mean?
But it's, in other words, what you're saying though, but it's at least got to be on the menu.
Yeah,
yes,
that's right. You got to be exposed to it. You know, if you can't do nothing unless you're exposed to it.
Yeah.
You know, you say, I didn't even know about this.
Yeah.
You know, I'll tell you something that I think you will appreciate. You know, in my history of jazz class, I require the students each semester to at least attend 3 live performances, 2 of which I provide for them on campus and 1 they have to go off campus to get. And I invariably get notes back from them that said, I'd never been to a live jazz concert before. I didn't think I would like it. But I listened to it and said, oh, I really loved it. It's really good. It was much more intricate than I thought.
Yeah. That's the kind of thing,
I have
exactly what I'm...
I have young people come up to me all the time and tell me that they got their liking jazz from listening to Kind of Blue, that record of Kind of Blue. I mean, a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of them said I started to play the music because of that. I think Chicorea told me that, man.
I believe it. I can believe that.
Yeah.
That album is.
You know, so a lot of people, because it's not pretentious, it's just something that you can sit there and listen to, and it's nice music, and you know, it's not bombarding you or nothing. It's just
it's one of the most exposed albums too in the world through the years. So that's what that adds to the validity of what we were saying about exposure. You know.
Another thing is that
not only is it great, I mean, you know,
that album came out in 1959, and sometimes I kind of think of 1959 almost as like the high water mark, when there was like the greatest proliferation. Some of the big bands were still going. A lot of small groups were coming along. The innovations were coming along in jazz in terms of harmonies. Miles is into the modal thing. And so I kind of look at that as a high water mark. I'd like to ask you maybe a closing question here and have you both comment on it. If you had a word of encouragement that you could say to young players coming up or to audiences, to sensitize them to the beauty of this music, not only in its craft, but in its cultural context, and you could condense that to a few words, what would it be?
Well, let me see. I'm trying to figure what I could say. I don't know what you could say to an audience to do it, but that probably has to be exposure again. You know, that they probably have to see, when we got television now, they probably have to see something on television that they say, well, I could get into that, you know, something like that. But I don't know, if you just probably get them and try to take them to a concert, that would probably be, a lot of people probably couldn't get there.
I'm sure you're familiar with the show that Ramsey Lewis has on BET.
Yeah, I've seen that.
I like that. I think a lot of people will tune into that and watch that maybe for an hour. You know.
Well, then I tell you what, there's another thing. Nat Adderley has a way that he can rap, and he could probably get you interested in it.
Inspired.
Because he's got that kind of rap, you know. So now, if he could do that on a major scale or something like that, he might could recruit some people.
Recruit some people to start listening. Or to start playing even. I tell you, I would say in a few words, I know it might sound a little silly, but stop, look, and listen. See, I have the confidence, we have the confidence that if we're not so busy, and if we pay attention, and if we get exposed, and once we listen, we get taken. That's all it would take for playing and listening, you know.
Yeah, because, you know, some people get exposed and they come to see our band and they don't know what to expect. And they go away, you know, enjoying it because Nat has talked to them through it, walked them through it, like, let's say, you know, and like that. So they got a better understanding of it than a band that you just go, some people just go and sit down and hear some guys play and they don't never say nothing. You know, they don't even, probably don't even call the tunes or something. You know?
It's so really easy to play with.
That's hard on a person listening, you know, I mean, listening at that, you know, because they don't know what they're listening at, you know, unless they have a exceptional musical
unless they're already connoisseurs of music. You know, probably have all the albums already at home, and they just hearing it live.
And then and what they're hearing, see, it changes. The levels change when you already have some predisposed. When you get a little introduction to, and a little insight, a little comprehension as to what is being done and what the attitude is, and then we are just human beings too, vulnerable and quite imperfect, as a matter of fact, and it's about imperfection that makes the magic happen, you know, and that makes everybody know that before in the lectures, and you know, in the workshops that we have before concerts. By the time we get to the concert, we feel good because we know that everybody in there that's heard that thing listens and hears, and they see things that they would never have seen if it wasn't for us having a workshop today. You know what I mean?
You see, that has some things where he runs the whole creation of the tune down. how it happened and where it happened and this is what he was trying to do and like that.
Yeah.
He was telling us about Unit
it's like
7.
For example.
yeah, like that.
You know what I mean?
You know, so that's always, to me, it enhances, especially people that wouldn't usually listen to this music anyway.
And it gives you some handles by which you can grip the music without having to understand all the complex harmonies.
See, that's what it means. It puts latitude to your every sensibility. It puts latitude, you know.
You know, I will say this one last thing, and that is, you know, you talked about improvisation and you talked about imperfection. We were interviewing one musician, and he said sometimes he came up with his best runs when he had painted himself into a corner and didn't know how he was going to get out of
what
it.
I'm going to do now.
Share us with it real quick, each one of those experiences where you came up with a new lick or a new way of turning a phrase around or something.
Ooh, now?
Yes.
Right, well, let's see. That question put me right there. No, that's an experience. Go ahead, Jimmy, you first.
Me first, huh? Well, I'm trying to think of something I did recently that, well, I don't know. You took up, you got into the salsa.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. No, I didn't understand the question. Yeah, I've gotten into getting into playing clave, understanding clave, and that really adds to my concept of rhythm. And I mean, I'm a new student from clave because you see, that's Latin music. It comes from Cuban, and it's another approach to what rhythm is. You know, how we used to look at it. And now, I mean, I'm looking at it. I'm doing all kinds of stuff with outside of playing. You know, Latin music, see? You know what I mean? And I'm having such good fun with it. It's turning my life around again, you know?
Well, see, me and I'm trying to find a...
Thanks, Jimmy.
Yeah, I thought I'd throw that in there.
Yeah, forgot about that.
No, I'm trying to find another, you know, I play a certain way. I'm trying to find a way sometimes that I can get outside myself and still be myself, you know? So I've just been searching for some kind of other ways, because, you know, some nights I sit down and say, well, man, you know, you do the same kind of, you have the same kind of feeling, which is okay. I'm not disgusted with my feeling or nothing, but I just want to be able to do something else, you know, sort of like what he's doing, you know, like maybe play another different kind of music and just get out, get away from me for a minute, you know, and do that.
Trying to extend.
Yeah, extend me. Yeah.
Extend that palette of choice that you have, in order, and then let your personality go with it.
Yeah, try to be more creative about about
you have to be careful with that kind of stuff, because you can't, you know, you don't want to really paint yourself in such a corner that you can't get out.
Yeah, I don't intend to do that.
You know.
I just want to say this one thing to you as a bass player. Is it difficult, or do you find that you have any problems at all taking bass solos? Because what happens to me is this: I play the bass too, and sometimes when it's time to take the bass solo, usually the bass player is last. After your hand is filled with lactic acid, you've been walking for everybody else.
Usually the drums are last. Yeah, usually, but. No, I see what you're saying. No, not because of anything physical, but maybe because of exhaustion in terms of having explored various, you know, playing for people who have explored all these various ideas and parts of the music that we're now playing. Now here I go having to express myself, and all these other things have been done. Not that I could repeat them, but you know, you have to let that go now, and yet not let it go, because what you want to do is
you have to be relative.
Yeah, you see what I mean? And boy, that's quite. I love to play solos. Don't get me wrong, but I'm telling you, is my biggest challenge to, you know, when it comes time to do that.
And be fresh behind everything that else that happened.
You know,
after you've been playing half hour for some other people.
Yeah. But you know, Jimmy and we get a chance to. The way Nat plays, usually Nat features the drums at least once in the set, and the bass at least once. And you know, and that means, and the way we, the kind of music we play, we get chances to do little solo things while we're playing.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Either into introduction or just little things, you know. You know what I mean? So
He used to have a little system that he used to use
Yeah.
on me, like we'd come to work and the first tune would be a drum solo. I said, man, why would you do that? He said, I just want to see whether you want to play or not. I said, I want to play, but I don't know whether I want to play on the first tune or not.
Yeah, well, we have been discussing some humorous and very insightful aspects of modern jazz with two of the finest performers, rhythm section artists in jazz for Hamilton College Jazz Archives, Jimmy Cobb and Walter Booker. Thank you.